What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the program. Today we had Donald Trump speaking at the UN. But before we're going to get into this speech, we're going to have a little selection of the news of the day. And it all started yesterday with Robert Kennedy and the Trump administration talking about how Tylenol seems to be linked to autism. The FDA, as you can see here, guidance advising pregnant women to limit their Tylenol intake. And so the consequence of that, immediately on TikTok, you had a pregnant liberal woman here, as you can see, popping Tylenol just in defiance to Trump. Total TDS. And she's not the only one, of course. A bunch of them doing the same thing. And you can't really explain something like that rationally. Why would you do that? Well, TDS is the only explanation. And unfortunately, Tylenol does not cure TDS as far as we know. So that was what happened yesterday. But today, of course, it was the assembly at the United Nations here. We have a funny video here of Emmanuel Macron, the French president, being blocked by the Trump motorcade here. He wanted to cross the street, and the cops in New York just wouldn't let him through. And he went on there to call Donald Trump to let him know that he was stuck in the middle of the street because of Trump's motorcade here. And we'll move forward a little bit here. And Emmanuel Macron here taking a picture with some random people in the street, some people kissing him on the head. At least it is better for him than to be slapped by his wife. So then we had Donald Trump here making his way in the building of the UN here, as you can see. And as he got on the escalator, boom, they cut the escalator right away. He got stuck. He was like, what the hell is happening here? And it wasn't the only technical problem that he got, because then when he started his speech, his prompter got cut off.
And I don't mind making this speech without a teleprompter, because the teleprompter is not working. I feel very happy to be up here with you nevertheless, and that way you speak more from the heart. I can only say that whoever's operating this teleprompter is in big trouble. Very much appreciated.
And so, of course, all this stuff, it is not a coincidence. It is definitely intentional. And so they did not want to put him in good conditions to give his speech at the UN. So now let's listen to what this speech was about.
Madam President, Mr. Secretary General, First Lady of the United States, distinguished delegates, ambassadors, and world leaders. 6 years have passed since I last stood in this grand hall and addressed a world that was prosperous and at peace in my first term. Since that day, the guns of war have shattered the peace I forged on 2 continents. An era of calm and stability gave way to one of the great crises of our time. And here in the United States, 4 years of weakness, lawlessness, and radicalism under the last administration delivered our nation into a repeated set of disasters. 1 year ago, our country was in deep trouble, but today, just 8 months into my administration, we are the hottest country anywhere in the world, and there is no other country even close. America is blessed with the strongest economy, the strongest borders, the strongest military, the strongest friendships, and the strongest spirit of any nation on the face of the earth. This is indeed the golden age of America. We are rapidly reversing the economic calamity we inherited from The previous administration, including ruinous price increases and record-setting inflation like we've never had before. Under my leadership, energy costs are down, gasoline prices are down, grocery prices are down, mortgage rates are down, and inflation has been defeated. The only thing that's up is the stock market, which just hit a record high. In fact, it hit a record high 48 times in the last short period of time. Likewise, in a period of just 7 months, I have ended 7 unendable wars. They said they were unendable. You're never going to get them solved. Some were going for 31 years, 2 of them, 31, think of it, 31 years. One was 36 years. One was 28 years. I ended 7 wars. And in all cases, they were raging with countless thousands of people being killed. This includes Cambodia and Thailand, Kosovo and Serbia, the Congo and Rwanda, a vicious, violent war that was, Pakistan and India, Israel and Iran, Egypt and Ethiopia, and Armenia and Azerbaijan. It included all of them. No president or prime minister, and for that matter, no other country has ever done anything close to that. And I did it in just 7 months. It's never happened before. There's never been anything like that. I'm very honored to have done it. It's too bad that I had to do these things instead of the United Nations doing them. And sadly, in all cases, the United Nations did not even try to help in any of them. I ended 7 wars, dealt with the leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering to help in finalizing the deal. All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen, but she's in great shape. We're both in good shape. We both stood. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the 2 things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. Thank you very much.
And here, the first part of his speech read a little bit like a campaign speech, but then he gets into his first argument here, and he is very right, sort of denouncing the United Nations, this globalist organization that completely is opposite of what it was meant to be in the beginning. The United Nations was meant as a vehicle to stop conflict between countries and sort of allow for a peaceful resolution of disputes between countries. And as he said, now it is exactly the opposite. It is the propagation of war or the negotiation of war that happens at the UN instead of trying to broker peace. And, as he said, never in the attempt at peacemaking deals that he has done and that he has been trying to broker even between Russia and Ukraine has the United Nations stepped up trying to broker peace, trying to move in any way, shape, or form toward peace. And nowhere is it more apparent than between the conflict between Israel and Palestine, where the UN, for now decades, instead of trying to broker some kind of peace and resolution in this situation, has been doing the opposite and has been sort of making sure that there is no peace broker between the 2 parties. And in a way, they try to justify their own existence, right? Because if there was peace across the world, then there would not need to be such thing as the United Nations. And we have this institution now that essentially is doing exactly the opposite of what it was meant to be, to try to justify its existence. And all the people who are working in there, if you look at the situation between Israel and Palestine, it really seems that these people are actively working in preventing any peace And it's just not right for this institution. I don't really understand why the US keeps financing the UN the way it does without requiring some type of reform.
And by the way, it's working now. Just went on. Thank you. I think I should just do it the other way. It's easier. Thank you very much. I didn't think of it at the time because I was too busy working to save millions of lives. That is the saving and stopping of these wars. But later I realized that the United Nations wasn't there for us. They weren't there. I thought of it really after the fact, not during these negotiations, which were not easy. That being the case, what is the purpose of the United Nations? The UN has such tremendous potential. I've always said it. It has such tremendous, tremendous potential, but it's not even coming close to living up to that potential. I've also been working relentlessly, stopping the killing in Ukraine. I thought that would be, of the 7 wars that I stopped, I thought that would be the easiest because of my relationship with President Putin, which had always been a good one. I thought that was going to be the easiest one. But you know, in war, you never know what's going to happen. There are always lots of surprises, both good and bad. Everyone thought Russia would win this war in 3 days, but it didn't work out that way. It was supposed to be just a quick little skirmish. It's not making Russia look good. It's making them look bad. No matter what happens from here on out, this was something that should have taken a matter of days, certainly less than a week. And they've been fighting for 3.5 years and killing anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 young soldiers, mostly soldiers, on both sides, every single week, from 5,000 to 7,000 dead young people, and some in cities, much smaller numbers, where rockets are shot, where drones are dropped. This war would never have started if I were president. This was a war that should have never happened. It shows you what leadership is, what bad leadership can do to a country. Look what happened to the United States, and look where we are right now in just a short period of time. The only question now is how many more lives will be needlessly lost on both sides. China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products, which, as you know, I found out about 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't happy. Think of it. They're funding the war against themselves. Who the hell ever heard of that one? In the event that Russia is not ready to make a deal to end the war, then the United States is fully prepared to impose a very strong round of powerful tariffs, which would stop the bloodshed, I believe, very quickly. But for those tariffs to be effective, European nations, all of you are gathered here right now, would have to join us in adopting the exact same measures. I mean, you're much closer to this. We have an ocean in between. You're right there. And Europe has to step it up. They can't be doing what they're doing. They're buying oil and gas from Russia while they're fighting Russia. It's embarrassing to them, and it was very embarrassing to them when I found out about it, I can tell you that. They have to immediately cease all...
And here, Trump is talking about, of course, this conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and this proxy war, really, between the United States, Russia, with Europe in the middle. And once again, as he was talking about earlier, he is the only one who wants to stop this war. Russia doesn't want to stop it. China and India benefiting from the flow of energy that Europe is not consuming from Russia anymore. Europe themselves wanting this conflict to continue because they have their own geopolitical interest. Of course, we know the situation with debt in Europe, and how, over the years, Europe is really trying to centralize its power taking it away from the different sovereign nations and trying to, focus it in Brussels, making, a sort of United States of Europe. And, this conflict between Ukraine and Russia, it is what the Europeans are seeing as the opportunity to federalize Europe and make it sort of the United States of Europe. And that's the reason why they don't want this conflict to stop. They want to go all the way in this conflict to reach a breaking point where these sovereign nations of Europe will have no choice but to accept to get together as a sort of cohesive government in order to survive. And it is not the case now. They're not at this rupture point. And so we're seeing now this war is getting, more and more intense by the day. And I assume that in the coming months and, over the next year, it's going to get a lot worse, not because they're trying to stop it, but because they actually want it to increase and continue. And probably they want to get in some kind of kinetic confrontation with Russia to be able to, force all these nations to give up their sovereignty and to sort of have a sort of European army that would be under the control of Brussels, of the European Commission. And, in that sense, Donald Trump is the only one who really wants to stop this war. And so he's trying to fight against Russia, against Ukraine, and against Europe to stop this war when all these three parties actually want to continue. And that's the reason why he's not being successful. It's not just about Vladimir Putin and whatever his relationship. I think in many ways he thought that he'd be able to convince Putin to stop this war. But the problem that he is facing now, and, it's sort of in the theme of what he's been talking about here in this speech, is that actually nobody wants to stop this war. Everybody wants this war to continue. Everybody has different objectives that they're trying to accomplish by doing this war. But Donald Trump is the only man here that is really wanting to go after peace. And neither any of these actors or the United Nations is actually interested in stopping the war.
In 1982, the executive director of the United Nations Environmental Program predicted that by the year 2000, climate change would cause a global catastrophe. He said that it will be irreversible, as any nuclear holocaust would be. This is what they said at the United Nations. What happened? Here we are. Another UN official stated in 1989 that within a decade, entire nations could be wiped off the map by global warming. Not happening. It used to be global cooling. If you look back years ago in the 1920s and the 1930s, they said, global cooling will kill the world. We have to do something. Then they said global warming will kill the world, but then it started getting cooler, so now they could just call it climate change, because that way they can't miss. It's climate change. Because if it goes higher or lower, whatever the hell happens, there's climate change. It's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. Climate change, no matter what happens, you're involved in that. No more global warming, no more global cooling. All of these predictions made by the United Nations and many others, often for bad reasons, were wrong. You're doing it because you want to be nice, you want to be politically correct, and you're destroying your heritage. They must take control strongly and immediately of the unmitigated immigration disaster and the fake energy catastrophe before it's too late. The carbon footprint is a hoax made up by people with evil intentions, and they're heading down a path of total destruction. The carbon footprint, it was a big, big thing a few years ago. I remember hearing about the carbon footprint, and then President Obama would get into Air Force One, a massive Boeing 747, and not a new one, an old one with old engines that spew everything into the atmosphere. He'd talk about the carbon footprint. We must do so. Then he'd get in and he'd fly from Washington to Hawaii to play a round of golf. And then he'd get back onto that big, beautiful plane and he'd fly back and he'd talk about, again, global warming and the carbon footprint. It's a con job. At extreme cost and expense, Europe reduced its own carbon footprint by 37%. Think of that. Congratulations, Europe. Great job. You cost yourself a lot of jobs, a lot of factories closed, but you reduced the carbon footprint by 37%. However, for all of that sacrifice and much more, it's been totally wiped out and then some by a global increase of 54%. Much of it coming from China and other countries that are thriving around China, which now produces more CO2 than all the other developed nations in the world.
And here, Trump is sort of arguing this this thing that really is not really the point of this global warming and this green frenzy that we're seeing. He essentially is using the rhetoric and the narrative that is pushed in the mainstream media. Oh, we need to save the world and we need to stop CO2. But the people who are actually enacting this, and this of course is the perfect venue at the United Nations to talk about that. The globalists that are pushing this, they don't actually really believe in that. This is just what they're saying to convince the populations that this is what you need to do, otherwise you're a bad person. It seems it's the MO, of every single policy that they're pushing. It's all about morality. It's, if you don't agree with us, then you're just a bad person. And so, there's only one way to be a good person, is to do exactly what the globalists are saying. But make no mistake, the people who are pushing this, they know exactly what they're doing. And, as he was using the example here of Obama taking Air Force One, but he's not the only one. You can have every single celebrity in Hollywood just taking a jet, going to Switzerland to argue about climate change, and then getting on their yacht and traveling all across the world. Ejecting more CO2 in the atmosphere than 100,000 people every year. And yet these people are going to come out and say, oh, let me give you a lesson about CO2 and climate change. They don't actually believe in that. And the whole point into this green movement was always deindustrialization of Western countries and moving industry in Asia, in China, in India, in countries where the standard of living and the wages were much, much, much lower. And so by moving industry from places like the Western countries where the cost of labor was high to places where the cost of labor is a lot lower, then all this industry, all these multinational corporations who have absolutely no attachment to the country where they first started, because now they are international conglomerates. They don't care about the nations where they started. Well, that was a way for them to just maximize their profit, reduce their cost, exploit people. And it is very much against sort of the narrative that the left pushes, but somehow, the power of money was enough to convince all the socialist and leftist political party to get on board. And what we've seen, over the last 20 years or 30 years is that the left that used to be, sort of on the side of the worker, fighting for better wages and union jobs and all that, they completely have abandoned that sort of narrative and that policy objective. And now it is sort of the opposite. Now they've completely embraced capitalism, this sort of, capitalism without any moral considerations where, just go anywhere, exploit people, get, 12-year-old children to make Nike shoes and for $1 a day, and then bring them back and sell them for hundreds of dollars in the Western world. And, this is where we are. And that's why now, you have wokeism, because there is nothing for the left, for the workers anymore in this sort of socialist policies and political parties. They have nothing to offer because they've embraced exactly the opposite of what they used to do a few years ago. And so now they had to reinvent some kind of narrative, some political narrative to be able to convince people to vote for them. And now it is sort of this wokeism idea, vote for us. If you disagree with us, then you're a bad person, and you have to let us exploit human beings all across the world. And if you disagree with that, then you're just a bad person.
Beloved nations, all of our nations, with their own courage, strength, spirit, and skill, our ancestors climbed mountains, conquered oceans, crossed deserts, and trekked over wide open plains. They charged into thunderous battles, plunged into grave dangers, and they were soldiers and farmers and workers and warriors and explorers and patriots. They built towns into cities, tribes into kingdoms, ideas into industries, and small islands into mighty empires. You're a part of all of that. They were champions for their people who never gave up and who never, ever gave in. Their values defined our national identities. Their visions forged our magnificent destiny. Everybody in this room is a part of it in your own way. Each of us inherits the deeds and the myths, the triumphs, the legacies of our own heroes and founders who so bravely showed us the way. Our ancestors gave everything for homelands that they defended with pride, with sweat, with blood, with life, and with death. Now the righteous task of protecting the nations that they built belongs to each and every one of us. So together let us uphold our sacred duty to our people and to our citizens. Let us protect their borders, ensure their safety, preserve their cultures, treasure, and traditions, and fight, fight, fight for their precious dreams and their cherished freedoms. And in friendship and really a beautiful vision, let us all work together to build a bright, beautiful planet, a planet that we all share, a planet of peace and a world that is richer, better, and more beautiful than ever before. That can happen. It will happen. It will happen, and I hope it can happen and start right now, right at this moment. We'll turn it around. We're going to make our countries better, safer, more beautiful. We're going to take care of our people. Thank you very much. It's been an honor. God bless the nations of the world. Thank you very much. Bye.
So there it is, the speech of Donald Trump at the UN. In many ways, I think he's going way too easy on these guys. And, after listening to all that, well, you get the sense that he's all alone trying to achieve these things where really the rest of the world is not on the same program. He wants peace, but everybody wants war. He wants to sort of reinvigorate Western nations, and all the Western nations, they actually want to go the opposite way around. They want to destroy themselves to try to gain some kind of advantage, to rebuild themselves in a different fashion. They want to lose the nation states to rebuild some kind of like supranational entity and have this globalist view that the nations, they're not good enough for this sort of new world where capital without borders can take over, and the nations of the old, it's an old concept that is not working. It's not suited for the world as it is today, this global world. And now it is time where you have corporations that are more powerful than countries, well, there needs to be this new order, this new world order where, you break away the nations and you go with these global entities like, the European Union instead of having European countries, and same thing with America, where you could, instead of having the United States, Mexico, and Canada, you could have the North American Union or something like that. This is the trend of globalism, and this is the trend that a institution like the United Nations has been pushing for a very long time now. But it seems that now this trend that we were seeing over the last few decades has stopped over the last 10 years. And there is some pushback. The populations now of these countries, they're not on board because they realize that, if you relinquish your sovereignty to some distant elite ruling class that doesn't care about you and that stands in thousands of kilometers away from you, and they have no interest in really anything that you say, and all that they're interested in is pursuing this hyper capitalistic vision where money is all that matters, and people don't matter. Well, it's not going to serve you in any way, shape, or form if you're not part of this very small club of elites. And if you're just a regular person, there is nothing there for you. And we're seeing back now this return, I guess, to nationalism. And, sort of the left has always put this term as sort of a bad term. But really, when you look at it, from the individual level, a nation is a lot smaller community than a global community where everybody's just a cog in the system and there's no humanity left, there is no individuality left, and everybody's left to be exploited by this giant machine, sort of like as it was in the Soviet Union. And what we're seeing now is sort of the failure of this globalist movement to really get people on board. And I don't think that this can be salvaged at this point. They have made such a bad rep for themselves. Nobody is on board. And now we're seeing, with the emergence of breaks of alternative system, everybody's rejecting globalization, whether it is in the West or in the rest of the world. And now there is really no one, there is no political force behind this movement. And they've made themselves so unpalatable that I don't think that they can ever manage to convince anybody that they are a force for good. And because the generation where they had an opportunity to do that, sort of the boomer generation, they're sort of going out of the political lead in terms of democratic nations, where now this cohort is going to be, as we move forward, less and less relevant politically in terms of voting power. And the newer generation are not at all on board. Then the globalist movement, really, they have failed. They have failed to seize their opportunity to bring this change in the global order, to put forth this new world order. And now it will, I think, remain sort of this dream of the past that will never materialize. And we're going to return to a different world now. And we're seeing the trend of deglobalization over the last 10 years, and certainly over this past year with the election of Donald Trump. And this is the trend that the world is going to continue on. And, on this channel, we cover a lot of the markets. And as you can see, gold now is just on a tear. It's been going up every day. It goes up by 0.5%, 1%, 2%. And it doesn't stop, and it's not going to stop. And this is the redrawing of the world order now. This global order is over. Nobody trusts words anymore, and gold as a neutral asset of reserve now is going to be, what people are going to trust, and all the central banks are going to buy gold. All the countries are essentially now going to rely on something that is neutral, and they're not going to let other countries dictate their future. So that's it, guys, for this speech of Donald Trump at the UN. Thank you for watching this video. Of course, as usual, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and to leave a like, and I will see you all on the next one. Peace.